What is going on, my guys? It is your guys, your boys, the Goof and the Goober. You guys decide who's the Goof and who's the Goober. It has been a while. We have not been on since, well, the week before we did 2 episodes in 1 week. Craziness and all that stuff. But I want to introduce to you guys one of the greatest minds behind the Goof and the Goober. I want to introduce you guys to the one, the only Matthew Leathers. Matthew, how's it going?
It is going freaking sweet. I'm just so glad to be back on the freaking pod, man. It's been like it's been almost 2 weeks, man.
It's been a while, and it's been kind of, it's been kind of a sad week not having the pod. But you know what? We're here, dude. We are here.
We did, and I will caveat and say this week we have gotten a lot of stuff done.
We did.
Okay? We got a lot of things in the works.
Matthew and I meet on a weekly basis, and we talk pod. We talk pod is what we do, right?
We talk freaking pod.
We talk pod, and we get things done. But one of the things that we are just really excited to just bring new content to you guys, and we're in the making of that, and we're all new to this, so please bear with us as we do this. But we're so happy that you guys are here, you guys are listening. I'll try to keep up with the chats.
Mine sounds bad. How bad does it sound, Juice Giraffe? How bad?
How bad?
Like really bad?
Jeez.
You sure it's me or is it Regan? Like robotic? Let me listen.
I don't know. Maybe you got to listen to that. Well, while Matt figures that out, maybe it is on my side of maybe it's, oh, you know what?
What? A robot in the shower.
It could be. Reese, let me know if that fixed it. Fixed any.
Huh. Wow.
Because there are some things that I'm still trying to figure out. I'm the tech guy, and I figured the things out. Things are figured out here. Matthew, does it need more sound from Matt? Needing more.
Needing from Matt. Here, I got you.
There he is. Get up close to that thing, Matt. We want to hear the nice, crisp.
Is that better?
Yeah, there. Yeah, you just got to get right up next to it.
We're still freaking working this thing out. I'm getting the new mic soon. So.
Anyways, we're really excited, especially this week. We get to talk about something that has been in the making for the past 3. Well, I mean, it's been coming out for the last 3 weeks, and it is stealing the hearts of America, stealing the hearts of the world, actually. But before we get into The Last of Us, which is what we're going to be talking about tonight, episode 2 and 3, because we didn't get to talk about 2 or 3. But I have a few questions, actually, for you, Matt. I want to kind of get the blood flowing, get the words going. I kind of warm us up, get us going. Right. So I looked up some good questions. And I want to ask you these questions because I was like, you know what? These would be some great questions to ask one of my best friends, Matthew Leathers. Matthew, if the average human lifespan was 40 years, how would you live your life differently?
How would I live my life differently?
Tell us how old you are.
Well, I am 26. So I would have 14 years.
Yeah, you would have already lived over half your life.
Okay. So for the rest of my time, I would be setting my daughter up for the rest of her life. That's what I would be doing. Anything I could possibly do to make sure that she's taken care of. If I know I'm going to be gone at my 40, I'm going to make sure she's taken care of. So
yeah, that's like for me, when I read that, I was like, man, I'd have to completely reevaluate kind of basically everything I'm doing. Like,
yeah,
I guess I wouldn't care too much about my job because, well, but here's the good question is like when I'm 40, is it like I'm actually like 90 or am I still like a 40 today? Like today's 40. You know what I mean? Like,
Okay.
so that
Okay.
would I not still be able to use the bathroom? Would I still be able to be pretty active? It's just that my lifespan, it after 40, it deteriorates and you're like, you don't last very far. It's, I don't know.
Yeah, I never really thought about that. That's a good question.
It was one of those questions.
My short form answers would be that I would try to set up my daughter as best as I could, and share the gospel more than what I do now, I think. Yep.
Okay. One last question. This is one that I thought was what is important enough to go to war over?
What's important enough to go to war over?
Yeah.
Gosh. Dude, I have no idea. Yeah. Man. That is a great question because I don't think we should go to war.
Right.
I don't personally think because I don't think people should be killing each other. Obviously.
Exactly.
But what would I'm stumped because I don't think anything should cause a war. I don't think anything in particular would be maybe. I don't know. I mean, I feel like freedom of speech.
Not every country has freedom of speech.
Freedom of I know there's a lot of different options, but here's the thing. I don't think that going to war over what someone can say and what people can't say, it can justify the thousands and thousands of people that die because of freedom of speech. I don't know. Would people kill for speech? I think people would. I think we've seen it in America that people have killed for speech. And people have been killed because of their speech. But do I think it justifies war? No, I don't. What I would justify for war is if another country stole my daughter and I had to get her back. I think that would probably be the only thing that I would justify. Yep, we're gonna nuke everything around except for her. But
I feel you.
Yeah,
I feel you.
That's a very tough question because I don't think war is really the answer. I'm a pacifist. Well, Kaylee, I think you'll be fine. I think you'd be fine. I'm kidding. I didn't know she was in here. But our daughter's more important, right? Like, if we had to go to war, I'd go to war for my daughter. I'm out.
One of my other friends actually asked me this question. It was a really, hard question for me. If your wife, and this is a circumstance you never want to be in, and you'll probably never be in, but it's something that he just asked me, and he told me like you have to choose one or the other. If your wife or your daughter were drowning, and you only have the option of saving one of them, who would you choose?
My daughter.
I went with my, he asked me the same question. I mean, I have a son, so obviously I went with, my son.
See, I think Kaylee, our daughter. Thank you. I would expect that Kaylee would save my daughter, and I would save my daughter as well.
Yeah.
My wife would be, I think my wife would be okay, and she knows she's going to heaven and stuff like that. My daughter she hasn't learned about Jesus yet. So
we can go.
All kids go to heaven.
Yeah, we can get in that discussion too if you want to. But I don't know. That for me, when I answered it, I went with my son too. Like I said, but he's like, as a husband, our wives are our responsibility. We are to love our wives as Christ loved the church. And that's the hard thing. Like for me, I know I don't know. It's just a hard. I know I'm supposed to love my wife and that I'm supposed to choose her, and she's, my kid is only going to be there for 18 years basically, where I get to raise them and then they get to put them off on their own. But my wife is forever. And so, I sacrifice myself for her, obviously. And I'm not saying you wouldn't, but I just
know that if I was put in my wife's situation, I would say, just let me die and save my child.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel like she would reciprocate those same feelings.
100%.
She knows, if I was on a boat and she was in the ocean and we only had one spot left and Kaylee had the option, she knows she probably would choose Scarlett over herself just because that's who she is. And yeah, that's a tough question.
Yeah.
Good questions. Ooh,
hey, thanks, man. I came prepared. As you guys know, Matthew's got to host the last two videos, podcasts, whatever you want to say. But I just kind of got this in the background and everything. Anyways, but yeah, so one last thing before we really get into things, Matthew.
Okay.
I really want to see you jerk it, man. This is what I'm gonna do. We're gonna put on some freaking music here, and you get in the freaking background, man. Matt talks so much about all the time. Oh, I can jerk it all night, and I'm like, I could freaking jerk it. So we're going to have a jerk off, and Matthew's gonna go first, and he's gonna show you guys how well he can jerk it. And I don't know.
I am an award winner jerking jerk, so I'm gonna jerk it as best as I can.
He's a good jerker, dude. Everyone, just get ready.
All right,
get back there. Show us, everyone. As Matthew prepares to get in. Well, I suppose we both got to get into territory.
Well, I've got to jerk it, and then you got to jerk it.
Yeah, so obviously I'll jerk it. I mean, I'm the host, so I get to say what kind of goes on within the show.
Okay.
So I decided, hey, we got to really settle this once and for all. For the 4 viewers that are watching right now, Reese will judge. Leathers 96 said don't break anything. But you guys decide who's the better jerker. Who's better at jerking off. So the jerk off is what we're gonna call this segment. I wish I had a big sign right now that says the jerk off, but we don't. I don't have it right now. Matthew, the floor is yours.
Okay.
Can you hear the music at all?
I can, but you know what? I'm gonna put some music on myself.
Okay, well, it's maybe all right.
What song did you play? Just so I can get the
I put on Club Music Mix 2023. Let me see if I can send you this in Discord here. Real quick. I can't.
Okay, that's fine. I'm just gonna pick a random one. Get in the mood here.
It's like, you want me to sing it for you? Here, why don't I sing it for you?
Okay, you can sing whatever
I'll sing it for you. Wow. All right. Time to top that off. Matthew, if you could sing the song, like, while I dance, imagine in your mind what the song would sound like, okay? Okay.
All right. Okay. I kept my breath. I jerked it really hard. gotta see you jerking, man. Jerk it. Let's go. Jerk it. Freaking jerk it left and right, baby.
Woo! Wow. Talk to me. Wow. You guys saw it first. The first jerk off of Matthew had no idea about that. Just to let everyone know.
No clue.
I wanted my hostessness just to really get everyone going. Get everyone pumped. Screw that, Juice Giraffe. You don't know anything. Screw you,
Dude,
man.
I was freaking jerking it so hard.
Okay, well, here we go. We're going to get into it now. As we said, we are getting into The Last of Us episode.
Hold on.
3.
1 second.
What?
Comment down below who freaking jerked it the best.
Who's a better
The
jerker?
quickest. Who finished quicker? Leave it down in the comments. Because I think I freaking jerked that thing so freaking hard.
You barely
Holy.
jerked it, man.
So freaking.
Everyone knows I freaking jerk it so good. Okay. Matthew, you okay?
Yeah, I dropped my.
Oh gosh. You hear
Okay.
it? I'm dying over
Go
here.
ahead.
Okay. So if you guys haven't seen episode 2 or episode 3, I'm assuming Juice Giraffe has it because he wants my password. And if you don't know, Juice Giraffe is my brother. Everyone say hi to Juice Giraffe if you can. Moo's way to make up for the cruise dance. Oof. But if you haven't seen the episodes, I would highly recommend that you go and see those and watch those. We will be doing some spoiling on episode 2 and 3, so let's get into it. I completely forgot that we hadn't reviewed episode 2. So I think what we could do, let's start with episode 2.
Okay.
And so we're going to start with episode 2, which is, here's a little breakdown. And we're going to do a non-spoiler review of episode 2. But here's a little breakdown about what's going on. Joel and Tess and Ellie traverse through an abandoned and flooded Boston hotel on their way to drop Ellie off with a group of fireflies. That's just a little non-spoiler, nothing really too special. But Matthew, give me a little in-depth about, I guess, give me your rating on episode 2.
Yeah, episode
thoughts.
2 is really, really good. Episode 2 was it was great. I think, and I don't want to spoil anything, but there's a twist at the end, and a little bit of a whoa, like you just didn't expect it. I think what they did is really good storytelling and being able to explain and show what the clickers are about in this episode.
Yep.
Kind of what their powers like their superhero, but what their abilities, like what they can do, what people like are running from, like how to navigate through the entire world. So it was a really good episode. You really got to see Pedro Pascal kind of step into like the leadership role in trying to take care of, Ellie and Tess throughout the episode. So I definitely would give it a 4.5 out of 5. I think there was a couple things that I wasn't a huge fan of. The twist at the end kind of pissed me off a little bit, but it was a really good episode nonetheless. So yeah, that's my rating.
4.5 out of 5.
4.5 out of 5.
4.5.
Yep.
Yeah, for me though, I think, I loved this episode. absolutely loved. Everything just seemed flawless from the beginning when you learn more and more about just what this whole fungus is and how it developed, to then, the big twist at the end, and as well as just seeing the clickers. That was phenomenal. Like, when I'm I, I guess I shouldn't go too far into it because I feel like I'm going to spoil things, and we're not in the spoiling part yet, guys. We're not there yet. But I loved it. I loved episode 2. I wanted more of it. I couldn't. I wanted more at the end of it.
Yeah.
And everything seemed just perfect. It just seemed like an amazing time. I give this a 5 out of 5. Nothing that I guess I wasn't really expecting the twist either. And that's, for me, I'm always expecting what's going to come next and all that stuff. So they did it. They did it. They stole my heart, and I love it. And so yeah, we're going to get into spoilers here now. So if you haven't seen it and would like to see it without it being spoiled and anything, I'd pause it here, go back, watch the episode, get all the stuff you want, then come back, pause it here, remember where you're at, and then come back, and we'll get back into it. We're gonna have this conversation. No, Juice Draft, please.
Oh, Juice Draft,
I need
please.
you.
Please.
Yeah, so Matthew, let's get into the spoiler edition of episode 2, and then I want to also just get into episode 3 because I think we kind of okay, thanks, Juice Giraffe. I think what I want to do is get into the spoilers for not just episode 2, but also get into episode 3, because I think what we can do is I mean, obviously these episodes go chronologically and it kind of follows that theme, but just so we don't we're kind of saving each other a little bit. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about, I mean, start from, I guess, what did you think about the whole beginning of how the whole fungus and how it all started in, I think it was like in India or Indonesia or
yeah, I don't remember. Actually, I can look here. Yeah, Indonesia. Yeah, so it started in Indonesia, and I don't really know what the importance of the Indonesia part is.
Right.
Other than that's where it started, right? So that didn't really bother me all too much. Now, when in the beginning, when they were going looking for the scientist or whatever, right? First things first, there was freaking boobs in this freaking show, and that was not freaking cool.
Can I say something about that part? I had no idea if it was man or woman at that time. I was like, I don't know if this is like I'm not saying like, it just looked like an overweight person, and it just looked like man boobs to me, but like, maybe it was just me. I completely forgot about that part. I was talking to my wife, like, I don't know about this. And
HBO, baby.
Yeah, well, okay. So keep going. I kind of want to get into the HBO thing that Juice Draft's talking about. But
no, you're good. I just thought that was funny. But yeah. So it basically started off where the Indonesia like army or something like that went out to look for this doctor.
Yeah.
And then they pulled this doctor in to like test on one of the dead girls, the dead girl we were talking about, where she was like naked or whatever. And she examines them. She's like in a full hazmat suit, covered up with the face. It's almost like COVID, for an example. And she like cuts open the forehead or the arm or something like that. And then as it opens, like you see the infection. And I was like, they said it was a fungus in the first one. It does kind of look like a fungus.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like a live parasite type looking thing.
Right.
Which was, I mean, that was really weird to me, because it was, for me, I would think, there's got to be a way to kill a parasite, right? And how does parasite move one to the other? But then I was like, oh, it's a fungus,
a
So
fungi.
that kind of threw me off. But yeah, it was really cool because she opened her up, she took a leg at her, and then she like literally freaked out.
Right.
She was like, like somehow she knew or had some feeling about this fungus already. They've heard about it or something like that, and so they basically pull her out afterwards. And it's like, you got to nuke the freaking city.
Yep.
You got to kill everybody in the
Gotta
city.
kill 'em.
So I don't know if they actually did that, but it just kind of got me thinking, like, if they created this in the movie or the TV show, like, could that actually happen in real life?
Right.
And what would be the protocols that the world would take to stop something like this? Especially if it's like, at the time, obviously we're getting into the point where at some point it's going to be curable, I'd imagine. Just based off of like Ellie and her story and her little arm thing or whatever. But at that time, they have no way of curing it. So
Right.
that the beginning was really good because it kind of let you feel and understand like the severity of this thing, even though we know like, hey, this is what happens because we saw episode 1 where they go to Michigan or wherever, and everybody's basically dead, basically. But you understand the severity a little bit more on how dangerous this actually is, versus like Walking Dead, for an example. The way I was thinking about it is like they never really talked about how it came about, really. It just happened, and this kind of made you jump into like very quickly, hey, this is how it happened.
Right.
This is the fungus and the severity of it. So I thought the beginning was good. I thought it was really good insight, because the first episode told us about it in the interview, but I wanted more. Like, I was like, there's just no way something like this could just break out.
Right. And that was
So this kind of helped.
that was back in the 80s. That wasn't to like the 2003 when the outbreak actually occurred. And we only know basically what Joel saw or experienced in the beginning of the outbreak. We didn't know how it really happened or where it came from or how it got the outbreak. We kind of got that answer a little bit, not necessarily like how it got out. I mean, we found more about it in episode 3 on how it was spread and more about why Joel didn't get infected. But yeah, I think the beginning was so great because you're learning more about not just the characters or what they're going through and what Tess is going through, and Joel and whatnot, but as you see how devastating this really was, because they were the scientist lady knew exactly what needed to happen, which was Retina Pertui, who is I'm really bad with names. Anyways, she's the one suggesting that they bomb the city because there is no way of basically getting this cured as well as containing this deadly virus. And so she basically told the general of the army, or Lieutenant General August Hidayat, that you got to bomb this place. You got to kill everybody inside of here. And that's crazy drastic. And back where Joel is in the 2023, yeah, that makes sense. But back then, they would think that's crazy. They would probably, obviously they probably didn't listen to her, but yeah, love this. I want to get into the scene with the clickers, and the first time you experienced that, because Matt, you are the experienced one who actually played the game.
Yeah.
And I want to hear your outtake, or
I was there was I can't remember, because I was you sent me that link to the the PS4 commentary,
Yeah.
or the non-commentary
Non-commentary, yeah.
Last of Us. And I noticed like this game is almost like beat for beat with the video game,
Yeah.
almost
I was
like
gonna
pretty
say
dang
that.
close.
Yeah.
And so I was doing some further research, and I noticed that the clickers, they use the same sounds
Right.
with the clickers from the video game in the show.
Right.
So, I mean, I thought that was pretty cool. I mean, it doesn't really change the story or the my view on it, but I thought it was cool because they repurposed it. But look, I'm not a huge like horror guy. So when I first played The Last of Us, I didn't think like, oh, I was gonna enjoy this game because I don't like horror all that much. You know, I can handle some things.
Yep.
And so playing it the first time, right? Like I enjoyed it. Again, that was like 10 years ago, but I enjoyed it. I remember it vividly as a game that like, hey, if I had this game, I'd probably play it. But now like going through and watching the commentary you sent me today and then thinking about the show, it's like beat for beat, and really like terrifying to see.
Right.
I think Pedro Pascal, and Ellie and Tess, I don't remember who plays them, but the scene where they're upstairs or they're walking up the stairs and they stumble upon the two clickers. I think there was two clickers.
Yep, two of them.
And how they just like they navigated the room being quiet and stuff like that. Like that was like very resemblance of the video game.
Yeah.
And I thought that was awesome. I thought that was sick. Like at times, like you expect, hey, this is probably what's gonna happen, but yeah, I mean, it still like freaks you out a little bit. Like
Yeah.
the sound of the clickers is it's a terrifying thing coming out of something or someone, right? So yeah, I thought that was a good scene, and I think that it explained, and again, I think this is something I'm going to echo here, is that this episode did a really good job at like showing us what the clickers do, how they react, why they react, how they work, right? So like when they walked up the stairs and they were like, hey, you can't touch the whatever, like the vines or whatever, the fungus, because
Right.
it'll tell the clickers from a farther distance where you are specifically. You learn about it and you're like, you realize how terrifying it is, and then they jump into the scenario where it's like, oh, you're in the crap now. You're in the freaking middle of it. So
Yeah.
I really thought it was cool. I thought it was good. I think that was like the first real step where you see Joel take Ellie under her wing. And Joel trusted that Tess would be fine by herself, basically let her be. Tess kind of tried to protect Ellie, but you really saw him kind of just take her under his wing and make sure that she was all right, and I really like that. So
Well,
yeah.
so as Matthew mentioned, I actually went back. I didn't play the game. I watched somebody play the game, and I'm basically caught up to episode 3 for where they are, and I completely agree with you, Matthew, that they are really going stride for stride with the game, and it's doing them well here. It's really doing HBO well. They're showing, we can do this kind of thing. The one thing I kind of, when I was watching the video game, is that they've made Joel's daughter and Ellie pretty much exactly the same in the video game. And so right away when you see Ellie, you're like, oh, that looks exactly like Joel's daughter. That was one of the things I'm kind of glad they changed in this. Obviously, Sarah, who is his daughter, I think she's half black, and then Ellie is just this white girl, and I think it's doing them well. But I think you're through this whole process of basically episode 2, Joel is trying to figure out what to even do with Ellie, and
Yeah.
just wanting to kind of wipe his hands and be done with her, really. But it isn't until the very end of episode 2 when Tess is bitten. You find out through when they meet up with the clickers that Tess was bitten, and now she's turning into basically a zombie or whatever you want to call it, or a click. I don't know what you call them.
They're clickers, but yeah, they're like a
all
zombie.
clickers. I don't know, because some of them are clickers, some of them aren't. Because when you see the pile of all these, because there's a scene there where there's a pile of just a bunch of people who have been infected, and they don't look like clickers. But let me also say that the makeup for the clickers, incredible. That it is beautiful, scary, and you just, you want to look away, especially when you start hearing the clicking noise. But when you see it, you're like, oh, that's sweet, and it's all like fantastic. Like I love a good hair and makeup, and and I think it does them so well. AGI didn't do, I don't think there's a whole lot of AGI here, except maybe for the ruined buildings, but kind of have to do that. But
yeah, I think that's what HBO really thrives on, dude. Like, is the quality of their content, except for like the new show Velma. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's horrible.
I'm not going to. I've heard very bad things about it.
So bad. It is so bad. But overall, HBO does a great job of making sure that things look good when they're creating their shows. And I think I would have not liked the show as much if they would have like completely changed the story too. So to your point, like they changed a little bit, like out of the, like you can't get a 1-to-1 replica of these characters, right? But you can normally you match them pretty well. You try as best as you can to get the people who look somewhat like them. But I think they've done a really good job at taking the story, running with the story, but kind of like putting their own little twists on it, but not completely trying to take it out of the entire story and add like weird stuff. And so I really appreciate that, because you look at the freaking Halo TV show, that was horrible. Like Master Chief's awesome, right? Like but you can't. Like there's already stories out there that they've made that are really, really good, that could be made on the TV show or for TV. Use that stuff. Stop trying to make random crap.
We can get into the Halo and things like that. And I agree. They could. Mandalorian is a huge factor that shows that you don't need to see somebody's face and still be successful. Obviously Pedro Pascal is Mandalorian, obviously, and he just only showed his face basically in one scene. And
a few times, but
but Halo right off the bat and that was the downfall. But
I just think that what they're doing is they're following the story, kind of putting a little bit of their own little flavor on it, and I love it. I think that when you take a story that's already been created and try to completely change everything about it, you just get a bad product, and we've seen that too many times. And so I just think this has been a really, really good adaptation in terms of the video game. Sorry, that was my tangent. You brought up something.
No, I appreciate that. We can go on tangents. It's our show, Matt. It's our freaking show, man. So at the end, we find out that Tess is turning into she got infected, and so she basically, I'm not gonna be one, and so she decided to do the ultimate sacrifice. And
I've got a little bit of PTSD from spraining my ankle so many times, but when she sprained her ankle, that freaking I was like, oh!
Please,
My
no,
left
not
ankle,
again.
please. No, I know that sucks. And they're like, let me
Ooh.
wrap it up. And I'm like, that ain't gonna do nothing.
Get out of here.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I was like, when they did that, literally, I just felt it, and I was like, no. Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah,
Talking about the end scene.
That's
so she murders-
content right there. That's what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, baby.
Yeah, baby. Yeah. So Tess basically, we don't know really what actually happened with Tess. All we see is the explosion. We don't really know. But that follows along with the video game, which I was surprised with within the video game. And now that is going to bring us to episode 3. Episode 3 now is following when a stranger approaches his compound, survivalist Bill forges an unlikely connection. Later, Joel and Ellie seek Bill's guidance. Matthew, episode 3. Give me your rating.
So overall, I'm not going to give any spoilers just yet. So if you only saw number 2 and you came back, we're on episode 3.
Yeah.
So episode 3, I'm going to give it, and it's going to be the worst rating I've given this show, but I still think that it does a lot for it. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5 here. Yeah. And it's not a horrible rating, but there's just a lot of things that I just don't agree with personally on how they took a character, and we'll talk more about it in a moment. But overall, like, I think it was a good episode that it definitely paints the picture of like of Joel and years in the past, and so it kind of creates like a secondary story for Joel, which it indirectly does throughout the story. So I give it a 4 out of 5. Definitely some things I probably would have cut out, but that's just my personal belief. But yeah, that's my ranking.
Yeah, I pretty much, I think I'm on the same boat. I'm with a 4 out of 5. I've watched it. It was still really good. I think right at the beginning, Joel and Ellie are still, I think their bond is a lot closer, and they're becoming more and more close. I have not a bold prediction, but I know there's something going to happen in the end here. I haven't watched, like I said, I haven't watched the whole video game, so I don't know really what the whole first even series is gonna, how it ends and all that stuff. But there's been hints and things like that I've been kind of like, there's something there. But yeah, I would agree. There was a part, there's this part in there that I agree with Matt. I'm not personally, I don't like it, obviously, and it's not something I kind of want to watch, but it does make it a little bit more realistic, and kind of puts, and it makes it a little bit more.
Let's get into the freaking bird. Let's get into the freaking beans, man.
All right, here we go. Let's get into it. Let's get into it. Matthew just got done watching this, so he's ready.
Yes,
he's hot. He's ready to give it out.
Okay,
so,
can we talk? Let's talk about it.
This is your spoiler. Let me just hang on. This is your spoiler. If you haven't seen episode 3, I would recommend going back and rewatching this. If you want to watch the spoilers, go ahead, or listen to all the spoilers. Go ahead and enjoy. All right, Matt, go ahead.
All right. Okay. We jump right into freaking Ron Swanson.
Good old Ron
as
Swanson.
Bill.
Ron
Offerman. Swanson. I was so excited about this character. I love Ron Swanson.
Same.
Hilarious guy. But the cool thing is, I think this brought him actually into a serious role, which we don't really see all that often. So I was really, really happy to see like his performance on it. At first I was a little shaky. I was like, how's this going to be? Like, is he going to start cracking jokes? Like, what type of character is he going to be? And right off the freaking bat, they like show like the type of guy he is. He's just like this. I mean, I don't know if he was in the military or anything like that, but
Doomsday prepper.
he was a guy like a doomsday prepper. Yeah. So he's basically like, he's ready to freaking go to war with anybody. He's got traps set up. He's got his own little place. He's got security cameras around, and he's just ready to freaking rumble. And I thought that was like, at the beginning, I thought that was freaking sweet, because when I think of like zombie apocalypse happening, like, your first goal is to protect obviously yourself, but how do you live life in a world like that, right? Like, how do you continue to like thrive in that situation besides leaning on the government, essentially, which is kind of what they talked about in the show. So he it was really cool to see Ron Swanson kind of just take charge at the beginning of the show. Build his own community by himself. No one else in it until a little bit later. But he sets up like an electric fence with barbed wire in the entire forest. He had like cameras set up and traps. And one of the scenes, like, you see him, you see one of the traps, and it basically, as the clicker walks by, it's like a shotgun, and it shoots him right in the head as they walk by. So I thought that was really cool. I think that was a really good way to start off Bill's story, and kind of getting to know him a little bit. But yeah,
I would agree. I think for me, getting to see Bill, basically just do what he's been prepping for his entire life. And I think Nick Offerman, the actor, Ron Swanson, whatever you call him, I think he does that perfectly. He's got the face. He's just, really prepared for that, and this is where he's at. But I mean, even before that, I want to kind of go back a little bit and talk about Joel and Ellie there, as they walk down the road to get to meet, because at the end of Ellie, when she's dying, basically not dying, but she knows her life is about to come to an end, she tells Joel that she wants him to bring Ellie to to Bill and Frank. Bring her to Bill and Frank. And so that's really where Joel and Ellie are on this road to get to Joel and Frank. So we don't really know who Joel and Frank are until this episode is revealed. And I loved right away Bill.
Bill and Frank, you mean?
Well, Bill, I mean, we're still on Bill. We haven't gotten...
Well, we don't know who Bill and Frank is.
Well, we don't know who Frank is at this point of the story. But Bill, I love that he's just this basically doomsday prepper. And then my favorite part is that when everyone leaves town and they're all quarantined, he's just driving. He looks like the happiest guy in the world, driving through, like all these fences, turning on the electricity, turning on the water so he can have it all. And it just seems so happy. And this is like, I did it. This is what I've been preparing for, and no one believed me, but now I did it. And the funniest thing, though, too, is that when... I did it! But the funniest... I think the funniest thing is when Ellie is, like, she sees it all, and she's like, man, this guy was a genius. And, like, people like us, we'd look at him, and we'd say, man, that guy's crazy.
You're a freaking nut. Yeah.
But sometimes, I mean, that's just kind of how it went. But... let's get into probably what we disagree on a little bit about this episode. When we are introduced to Frank. We are introduced to Frank as Bill is usually doing his thing. A trap went off, and he goes out, and you see that somebody had fallen into a hole, and it wasn't a infected person or anything. It was a guy by the name of Frank. Frank is played by Murray Bartlett, and we kind of get to know Frank a little bit. Now we're getting into the scene where I mean, Matthew, what were you... Okay, so let me ask you this. before we get into anything crazy, what were you thinking Bill and Frank, how that relationship would be?
Look, I personally thought that Frank, and so we caveat a little bit because when Bill finally meets Frank, right? Like Bill's like nervous to communicate and he ends up bringing him into the house and feeds him and stuff like that. But he was like super nervous that, he was gonna feed him. Yeah, he didn't want to. His idea was that if this guy leaves, he's gonna tell other jackbags to come to his place and essentially ransack him, right? Yeah. Which is the logical idea, right? That might happen, right? Because it's crazy times. And so my thought was going in is this guy, like, he's just trying to suck up to this guy as much as he can, so that way he can get fed, he can get he can get water, he can do, take a shower, right? Because he's got running water, he's got electricity and stuff like that. So the entire 5-minute spiel that he was there at the beginning was, I thought he was trying to set this guy up to either have a group of people come over the fence or to get what he can, leave, and then come back. That's what my thought was. Turned out there was a little bit of a...
Well, okay, yeah. I thought they were just going to be really good friends. These guys are just really good friends. And this is kind of how their friendships start. Like Matthew said, Frank basically was like, I just, give me some food and whatnot. And Frank is more of a, like, demanding, and Bill is kind of like, I think this is what I thought. Bill has been lonely for years, for however long, many years, until somebody finally showed up and he has got somebody to talk to. And he's got a friend finally. And so he wants to, part of him is saying, no, I don't want anything to do with this guy. I have to keep myself and everybody protected. But at the same time, I do want some type of relationship with somebody. And so I think for Bill, in that mindset, he'd want to have that relationship, and he would be forceful of it happening and say, and kind of push him away. But also, if he would push back, or if anybody would push back, I think he would accept them and be like, okay, yeah. The problem, though, is when, the dinner and everything and the piano scene is, here we are in the piano scene, and Frank decides, I'll leave. I'll get out of here. Just let me play the piano. I haven't played the piano or whatever. And so... Let me play, man. Just let me play. I just get to play. And so he plays the song. What is the song?
I don't remember. Some old jazzy song, I think, or
I forget.
Some love song.
It's a love song, and he, Frank's not that well at, he's just sight reading basically from what he had on in front of him. And then Frank's stops him during the middle of the song, or not Frank, I mean Bill. Bill stops him in the middle of the song, and he's like, "That's not how you do it." You kind of like, stop.
Let me show you, man.
Let me show you how this is done.
Let me show you how it's done, boy.
And this is where I got the vibe. I was like, wait, there's something else here. I literally looked at my wife and I'm like, wait, are they gay?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like, but I wanted to go back to my original thought that they were just going to be friends. And so I went back to that. I was like, I don't think so. But it ended up Frank asking him, like, who are you singing that to? Like, what was the girl's name? And Bill says, there is no girl.
There is no girl.
There is no girl. And Frank says,
I know.
And they shared an intimate kiss. And
I had to turn away, man.
All right, let's get into that. What do where are we at with this whole Frank and
Look,
Bill relationship, lover relationship, romantic relationship?
look. Okay, so I'm not gay, clearly. So
Just
I'm
because
married
you
to
have a
my
ring
wife.
doesn't mean you're not gay.
I'm sorry, I associate it with my wife. Okay. So I'm not gay. I have a wife. We're married. We've been married for a long time.
Yeah.
Almost 7 years. So we've been married for a while. So it was just kind of, it was weird. Long time in the name of the song, by the way. Oh, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for the clarification, my wife, who's in the chat for our Twitch. Um, we've been married for a while now,
Right.
but like, I understand people, like, the world is so, like, you have to represent all types of people, but I
Yeah.
just didn't want to see that, man. Like, I didn't want to see it.
Yeah.
Right? And then it jumps to the next scene where Frank's basically like, all right,
down on him.
go friggin' take a shower. And then he comes out of the shower, and then they're like touching up on each other, and Frank goes down on him, and we're like, it's not necessary, right? Like, you didn't need to show us any of that. Like, luckily they didn't show any like gruesome stuff, like really bad, like gross things. But personally, not a fan. That's kind of what my knock was on it.
Yeah.
After that moment, like, look, I understand they loved each other, right?
Yeah.
They continue to be with each other moving forward. And I'm smart enough. We are smart enough. The people of the show are smart enough to see, like, okay, you fell in love. You're with each other. You could show kissing or whatever, but like all the other stuff, going down on him, doing all that other crazy crap, didn't need to see that.
Okay, so this is where I kind of wanted to kind of get down. This is the big beef that I wanted to talk with you about.
Yeah.
And I wanted to talk because in the video game, Bill says, because what we learn about in the video game, spoiler alert on the video game, just be ready. We don't get a whole lot about who Frank is. You don't get a lot about or really see Frank at all in the very first video game. You see that Frank hangs himself, and that's where you're like, oh, who's Frank? And Joel and Bill were on a quest, whatever, and they find Frank hung in this house. He hung himself because he got bitten, and he didn't want to turn into an infect or be infected. So Joel asks Bill in the game who he was, and his response is very broad. It's not, oh, he was a really good friend of mine. It wasn't, oh yeah, he was this. It was, he was my partner. So in that, I think for sure, and Neil Druckmann, whatever the guy who created the game, I think he did that on purpose, and I think it's so that the audience can make their own conclusion in that whole design. My problem, though, I think, is that they made the conclusion for us, and that's fine, and I get it. And this is also the beef that I have with HBO. HBO does this thing. It's the same reason why I didn't watch Game of Thrones or or Spartacus or some of their crazy series, is because a lot of their series is just very sex oriented, very like nudity and all that stuff. I'm not
politically driven.
I'm not against like nudity in TV. I think there is a good purpose. Like in episode 2, when you see the infected person and it's just a dead person, but that's real life. You kind of get that. Where, here, it's not something not everybody wants to see. And this is the hard thing I always struggle with, and I'm struggling with this whole concept, this whole thing. And I get it's, for me and you, we're Christian guys, and it's, we're not we're against that, but they're not Christians, so I'm not going to be like, you can't do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's just like, how do I kind of navigate this? How do I get through this? And like, because I sat down with my mentor today and I kind of talked to him about the whole thing, and he's like, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of like that's just kind of TV, and they TV has been always been pushing the boundaries on just culture,
Yeah.
because I mean, like you think of I Am Lucy, I Love Lucy, and they were the first TV show to show an actual husband and wife sleep in the same bed, and that was kind of controversial at the time.
Mhm.
But I don't think this is like a huge pivotal point in the story that you're like, I can't. This is just too much for me. Whatever. Yeah, it was
Right.
awkward for me and you because, I mean,
We
obviously
don't agree.
we don't agree, and we're heterosexual, and we don't. It's like kind of like don't really want to look at that, but it's in the same way. It's kind of like, well, they can kind of do their own way, and I think Neil Druckmann set up his video games so you can make that own conclusion, and I think that's kind of, I don't know if he was specifically and he was intentional about making it that way, but I think there's a little bit of he did do that because why else would you use partner instead of my
Husband,
friend,
because they got married at the end.
well, they did get married at the very end, but okay, now we can get into that. Okay, so
Sorry.
I mean,
One last final thought. One last final thought.
Yeah,
on
you
that.
got anything else to say?
And I want to just make sure that we preface this is that we're not like judging everybody else about like, hey, like if you're gay, sure. I mean, we're gonna love you and all that stuff, but we do think it's wrong. 100%. We do think that it's not okay. Like we're not applauding you or saying, hey, it's okay for you to do that stuff, right? But when you're trying to appeal to a large audience, right? You could have done it in a more like less obvious way that would have made it easier for people like us to not close our eyes or to make us not turn away at that moment versus like just making it extremely, extremely obvious that, hey, these guys are in love, right? Like when you do things like that, especially in movies, and I hate that sometimes in movies is that like they try to overemphasize things because they think that we're not going to understand why the characters are doing what they're doing. We can infer and we can say, okay, this is what's happening. We know what's happening. We can assume, right? And we're saying this with not just two men. We're talking about two females. We're talking about male, female. We're talking about all different types of relationships, right? We're not saying that because it was a gay situation or two men that we're not a fan of it. We're saying we are smart enough to not see that stuff to make the inference that this is what could happen, right? These are the things that could be happening on the back end. We didn't need a whole makeout sesh with two guys. We didn't need a whole makeout sesh with a girl and a guy, right? Or two girls, right? Or a guy going down on a girl, right? Or any of that,
whatever that
right?
is, yeah.
Because we're all smart enough to know like, hey, this is what's happening. So that's what when I think about like movies and I'm thinking about TV shows, like you guys don't have to do that. It adds no value to the show. It adds nothing. It actually turns people off a little bit from the show because you never know what's happening, right? And so I think that's where they could be a little bit smarter. And that's really my only knock on the entire show was that their full makeout sesh right there by the piano and then him going down on the guy.
100%.
That was pretty much it. Everything else, I was like, this is what a gay couple might do. This is what they're doing. This is what I
agree, and I completely. It's not that they showed a gay couple. It's that they kind of went a little too far in showing what they showed. They can. Plenty of people know what they're doing without having to show all of that. And that's kind of the same thing with the beef like I had with HBO. It's not necessarily just with, same sex or anything like that. It was even heterosexual stuff.
Right. Well, I think what this does is it can plague the younger generation, in my opinion, because it's different if a kid like, imagine if there's like a 13-year-old and a 13-year-old says, "Hey mom, I'm gonna watch Game of Thrones," right? But without any backing on it, right? A parent's probably gonna say 9 times out of 10, "No, you're not watching Game of Thrones," because we all know what Game of Thrones has in it, right? But if a kid says, "Hey mom, there's this show called Last of Us. It's a video game adaptation, or it comes from a video game that I play," they're going to be more likely to see that.
Right.
And so I think that's where it comes down to, hey, HBO, like, you guys have to recognize that your audience for this show specifically isn't just going to be adults. Like, you may put MTV 18 or whatever, or M18,
right,
but because this is a video game, people who are outside of the age range are going to see this. And I think that negatively affects the youth, in my opinion. So,
yeah. Well, we're going to move on. We're going to move on from this point. I know we could probably talk about this for a while, but we're going to keep moving on. I wanted to talk about Ellie a little bit. There's a point in this episode 3 where we see Ellie. They're in like a gas station or a convenience store, and Ellie finds this hole that goes down into this little cellar. And in the cellar is the zombie, and basically the ceiling caved in on the zombie, and it was still alive, but it was just stuck there and couldn't move. And in there is where Ellie has her first really interaction alone with an infected one. And so in this scene, we kind of get a little, we're still trying to understand who Ellie is. What were your thoughts really in this scene where Ellie, takes a little cut off of the infected guy, and then, in the end stabs him and kills him?
Tangent a little bit. I think this scene, there's a lot of imagery that shows like, hey, this is like a growing up moment type thing, because when she goes down into that hole, she finds a box of tampons.
That's what I thought it was.
Yeah, so it was a box of tampons. And my wife has those tampons, so that's why I knew when I saw it.
I'm sure.
But I've had to buy them so many times. But yeah, so there was a box of tampons down there, and I think that's an imagery like, hey, she's probably like 13 or 14, I'd imagine, if she's like excited about seeing tampons or something, or even maybe like 15 or something like that. But you realize like how discombobulated she really is from reality, in the world that's around her, because she's been stuck inside I don't even know, the Fireflight, I think is what they're called. She's been stuck with those guys her entire life. So this is her first interaction where she's excited about seeing tampons, which I know that's like a little thing, but it shows like, holy crap, she's a very sheltered child. And then right afterwards, she gets her first real experience with the clicker, which I think is a I think it was a really good scene, because it like kind of shows her like really growing up a little bit, and like getting that first kill of a clicker, like feeling confident. Oh, hey, I've killed one of these with things before, because I'd imagine down the road she's gonna have to do it anyway. Right. And so I thought that was a really good. I think it was a really good scene. I didn't know she had the knife still though. I thought Joel had
since season 1. No, she's had that since season 1.
So she's been hiding it.
I don't think she's been hiding it. I think at the very beginning, when in episode 1, Joel steps on her knife, and then she basically gets it back from him.
Well, I just don't know why Joel, and this is just a side note, Joel's not scared of a knife, but he can't give her a gun.
Okay, so hang on. Hang on, Matt.
I know we're jumping around. I'm sorry. I'm going in the weeds.
So I want to kind of still go on this, because I think this whole part, Matthew just loves switching it up. He loves standing and sitting, showing it off. But this part I think is crucial for Ellie, because it is her losing her innocence in some way, because she's showing that she's trying to find her place in the world. And I think in some ways she's trying to find this place in obviously the cure, as for, being infected, right, and this whole infection, and being the vaccine. But in some ways she wants to be herself. And I think she looks up to Joel and Tess and sees them and wants to be just like them, because they kill the clickers. They do all these fun things that she looks at. And so when the first time she's just curious of what they're actually like, and she has never been really close up. She's just been bitten by one and then having to run away. So this is where it brings me to the whole gun thing, because every episode she's asked for a gun. And this is where I believe that she's going to have to save Joel at some point. She's going to have to come in, and Joel has no other obligation. He is out of luck. He is out of options, and his only option is really Ellie. Ellie. And Ellie's going to have to come in and save him in some way, and she's going to have to get a gun. And at the end of this whole episode, she gets a gun. So I think this next episode, I don't think I think we're gonna forget about the gun. Well, they're gonna want us to forget about the gun, and then Joel is gonna be in some big trouble, where Ellie will have to step in. Now, I did watch a little bit too far into the video game, so I know a little bit about what's going to happen next. Maybe. Who knows if they...
Don't you dare! Don't you dare spoil it.
Oh,
I'm reliving this whole thing.
I watched I don't know if they're going to do that part. It'd be pretty cool. I think they're going to. I think that would make sense. Because this is... this is the whole part. We don't know anything really about the Fireflies. We don't know anything about the government. We're still trying to figure out who's really the good guys, who are the bad guys. And I think really right now, I think you can suspect everyone's kind of the bad guys here. And really there's no good guys. It's kind of been a free-for-all. Everyone's evil. You can't trust nobody. And I think that's why Joel is the way he is. He doesn't want to trust Ellie right off the bat. He doesn't want to, as well with Bill, when they first meet, Bill is big, does not want them to be there, and basically holds them at gunpoint while they're eating dinner, enjoying a nice meal. And I think that was funny. I think this is going to turn into something where at the end... No, I don't know really what happens at the end. But I think what's going to happen at the end is Ellie's going to has to save Joel. And obviously their relationship builds. And Joel's going to want to save Ellie. And so Joel does everything in his power to try to save Ellie. But he can't. And Ellie's going to have to be the one who saves him. But in the end, she can't save him. And he's going to die. It's my bold prediction.
Bold prediction.
Bold predictions here.
I got no idea. I think that overall this episode was a really good connecting piece.
Yeah.
You know how they have in some shows they have filler episodes? I feel like this one was kind of a filler episode.
Yeah.
But overall, I think this episode, it's unlike, what was the show? The frick was, Star Wars: The Clone Wars, where they have just random stupid episodes that don't help the story whatsoever. Okay,
yeah.
This episode it didn't really pushed the story forward, but it did it in a manner where it didn't focus on Ellie or Joel as much, but it focused on a side character, which I thought was, I think they did a really good job. So,
no, I agree. I think they did a fantastic job, and I'm happy where they did, and I'm really excited for next week. Gonna say my wife is really into it, and not only just my wife is into this, her whole family's into it, which is very weird and odd that her mom and then I am kind of watching the same show and we're really into it. And it kind of goes to show that this is a really good show. Like, if you haven't watched it, I highly recommend to watch it. This is gold. This is television in the making. This is kind of probably what... Oh, I forgot to show this. My bad, guys. This should have been on top. But go watch it. I think the first episode is free on YouTube right now, if I do remember. If I saw something on there, I don't know.
I thought I saw something too.
It might be. I
think it's free on HBO or something.
Is it?
If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. I mean, I might look it up here on YouTube real quick. But like I said, guys, go check this out. It's such a phenomenal.
Pedro Pascal. Look, if you guys haven't watched anything about like with Pedro Pascal in it, like, this is the show to jump in. He's Mando in The Mandalorian, right? He's Joel in this show, and I think he was just in another one with Nicolas Cage. They got really good reviews or something like that. And over the past few years, of the few TV shows that he's done, he's gotten more than like a 90% on like Rotten Tomatoes on all of the shows. Right. And it really just shows like he is a top tier actor. And the girl that they brought in for Ellie, top tier as well. Yeah. Like HBO and I wish DC would pull some of the stuff that HBO does, because now that they're connected, but HBO pulls a lot of good actors and actresses into their TV shows. And this is just another one to kind of attest to that. And so, yeah, highly recommend it. Super fun, enjoyable. And I really think at the end of this episode where they drive off, Ellie and Joel, I really think that was a really good imagery of like father-daughter moment. Like he's kind of fully invested, like, hey, I am her father, essentially.
Yeah.
You know, I think the story's going to change where it's going to be. I think the story's going to change a little bit to where it's like she's coming for the ride because she wants to come for the ride, and she knows that, hey, I don't want to leave Joel, and like I don't think Joel wants her to go anywhere either. So I think there's going to be a big battle between him, Tommy, and the people that they're basically delivering her to at some point. So I'm excited to see how they handle that. But
yeah, it's gonna be.
Those are my final thoughts.
Yeah, I think for my final thoughts too, I'm curious to see what this relationship goes with Ellie and Joel. This is obviously gonna be. I mean, from the get-go, from the episode 1, we're seeing that this is gonna be Joel replacing his daughter who died 20 years before, and it's gonna be interesting to see how they get this together, because I don't think Ellie wants in on the ride. I think you're right on that, and Joel is kind of pushing back a little bit. He doesn't want that. At the end, they're kind of together. They're driving together, but he sets the ground rules, and I think that's important for him, because he's now saying, okay, if you're gonna stick around, you need to do, you need to stop being such a idiot or whatever. She is an idiot sometimes, but anyways,
yeah,
guys,
I just sent the link to the Last of Us episode 1, the free thing.
Oh, is it on there?
So we'll put it in the show notes, and we'll put it at the bottom in the description, and I just put it in Twitch. So check it out.
Check it out, guys. Well, if you guys have made it through this stream, we want to thank you guys for being here. We appreciate all that you guys do, because you guys really make us who we are, but also we love you. We're glad you're here and listening. If you haven't already, please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. We are the Goof and Goober Show on YouTube, Goof and Goober on Twitch. You can
Let us freaking know who jerked it the best.
Yeah, let us know who freaking jerked the best. All right, we'll probably put that on the old Instagram. If you guys don't follow us on Instagram, make sure you go and follow us on Instagram. The Goof and Goober Show _ under each word before or after each word, except show. And guys, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you and we love you guys. And we hope you guys have a fantastic weekend. Thank you yet again.
Yeah.
Goof and Goober, episode 4, signing out. Peace.